Hi, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter, your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer on SI, and the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider podcast as we continue to explore the Raiders position groups. Today, we're going to talk about quarterback, and believe it or not, there is a lot to talk about in the Raiders quarterback room. And let's start instantaneously with the elephant in the room, and that is Geno Smith, clearly the number one guy. When I say that, I always get inundated with email with people saying to me, "How can you say that? You said Pete Carroll's going to let everybody compete." Let me just make this clear. As long as Pete Carroll is the coach of the Las Vegas Raiders, every play, every down, every every day, every week, every month, everybody will compete for their position. Nobody owns the spot. They lease it. That includes Max Crosby, who could go to 31 other NFL teams and start. He's that elite. But even Max is going to have to compete. But is it safe to say he's not going to be beaten? Of course it is. There's not one player on this Raider team that is going to, barring injury, that's going to beat out Max Crosby for his spot. That ain't happening. I think there's some really good potential young quarterbacks behind Geno Smith. But you're talking about a guy that's been in the league 13 years, has played at a very, very high level, has matured and grown. Remember, early in his career, lots of people wanted to throw him away. There were a lot of people saying Pete Carroll was nuts when he hooked his train to Geno after letting Russell go. Boy, did he prove to be correct. Geno proved a lot of people wrong. He's seasoned. Now, let me explain how big of a difference, because I am consistently asked, what was the biggest Raiders move this offseason? And yes, Pete Carroll was a big, big move. And because everything rises and falls with leadership, that was by far the biggest. But 1B was Geno. So let me explain what I mean by that. Years ago, as a very young reporter, and I was talking with the general manager and asking him just about, how do you evaluate players or whatever? And he said to me, "How do you think I evaluate quarterbacks?" I said, "Passing yards, interceptions." He goes, "No." He goes, "I look at yak, yards after catch." And I said to him, "Well, that's more about the wide receiver speed." He goes, "Oh, you're young. You got a lot to learn." And he taught me about throwing a man open. Now, this is a widely used NFL term. He didn't invent it. Everybody uses the term. So let me give you an example. Ken Stabler had great receivers. I'm in no way minimizing Ken Stabler's wide receiver core. But Ken Stabler made them look really well because he was able to put the ball on the money and they caught the ball in stride. They didn't have to stop. Now, was every ball thrown perfect? No. Because when you say that, then somebody goes and finds an old video where whatever. But we're talking about, as a general rule of practice, Ken Stabler got the ball to people. He could make all the throws. He got the balls to people. They caught it in stride. Just look at last year. Brock Bowers had some big yak. Okay. But almost all of his big yak, almost all, not all, but almost, was him breaking guys. How many times did he catch the ball and there was no yak because he had to go backwards? Balls were behind him, way out in front of him. Imagine what Brock Bowers would have done last year with Geno Smith. With Geno Smith, who could have got him the ball in stride. Now, Fred Biletnikoff, who many believe was one of the best wide receivers of all time, of course, in the Hall of Fame, best receiver award in college football is named the Biletnikoff after him. Most young people don't know he was not fast, but he had quarterback that could get him the football And then he was able to use his body, create separation, and get massive amounts of yak. Sure, you want your receivers to be fast, but I'd rather have a guy that runs a 4.5, 4.6 who is elusive and can break tackles than a guy that runs a 4.3, but he ain't doing anything after he gets the ball. Because you can create huge chunk plays. And so, what made Freddie great, Fred wonderful, was his ability, because his quarterbacks got him the ball. They threw him open. If you can just get enough space to get your hand, here's his hand, here's the defender. And with Freddie, here's the defender. He's going to catch that. And then he gone. Geno Smith, early in his career, people were ready to throw him away. But he aged. He sat under Russell. Russell left. They gave him the keys to the Seahawks, and he made the most of it. Because with maturity, he learned how to have a big cannon, but how to use it. And I don't even know that I would call his arm a cannon. But I'll tell you what, Geno Smith's most underrated ability is his brain. Man, that guy is smart. He knows how to throw the football. He knows how to throw guys open. And yes, there's going to be throws, I'm sure, where it's a bad throw. He's human. Nobody throws a perfect ball all the time. But his track record is throwing guys open. I think you're going to be impressed with what Brock can do. I think he's going to have more yards, even if he had less catches, which I'm not saying he would, because he's going to have more yak. He's going to get the ball in stride, wham, and keeps going. I've talked about this before. I just mentioned Brock. How many times did you watch him when he caught the ball? There was no yak because it was bad throws. Trey Tucker, how many times did you see him open and he had to stop for the ball? That stuff's not going to be what it is with Geno. Geno is going to throw guys open. He's going to put the ball on the money. He already knows exactly what Pete wants. He knows exactly what Pete wants. He's going to be a coach on the field. Is he vocal like Max? Absolutely not. But the Raiders don't need him to be. He's going to be a captain. He's got a tremendous work ethic. He's going to help all the young quarterbacks. He's going to walk over to a corner who is hoping to make the practice squad and say, let me tell you what I saw you do there. This is how you're tipping the quarterback. He's a consummate teammate. He's a consummate pro. Now, do I think Geno Smith is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL? I do not. I've seen some people that think he's 10, some that think he's 14. I can live with all of those numbers. He's not Joe Burrow. He's not Josh Allen. He ain't Patrick Mahomes. He's not Matthew Stafford. He's not Jordan Love. Dak Prescott, I think you got an argument there. I think you got a real argument. Kyler Murray, there isn't even an argument. Justin Herbert, I think Justin's younger. I think Justin's a great kid and a good player. Justin Herbert has not convinced me that he's an elite quarterback yet. Just hasn't. I think he benefited greatly from Jim Harbaugh last year, but has not demonstrated to me at all. I mean, you can go right down the line. Do I think Geno's better than Jalen? No. Hurts? No, I don't. Mm-mm. But I think he's better than most. And remember that old adage, I told you I was taught by a general manager one time. There are 8 teams in the NFL that are confident they have a quarterback that can win them a Super Bowl. There are 8 teams that think they do, and 16 desperately trying to get a quarterback. I think Geno Smith makes the Raiders better. I think Geno Smith instantaneously brings stability to the quarterback. Now, he's a 13-year vet, so let's not pretend like he's got a 10-year window ahead of him. Pete Carroll, I think, will be here longer than Geno Smith. That's not a slam on Geno as the starting quarterback. It's not a slam on Geno. It's just age is a reality in the NFL. But I love the way Geno plays the position. I love the way he handles himself. I love Geno in the locker room. There is nothing about Geno Smith. Now, his critics are going to tell you, look at the interceptions. Okay, let's talk about those. I love taking on the critics, right? Grab the bull by the horns. Early in his career, absolutely that was a legit criticism. But go back to last year with a horrific offensive line. He threw a lot of interceptions in situations where, okay, go take a risk because we ain't punting. And he took risks that were authorized risks. You take those out, and you don't see a lot of situations where Geno, was the problem. I think the Raiders are completely better because they have Geno Smith. Very much do I like that guy's game and the presence. Talking to people at the Raiders, that has really stood out to them was Geno's presence. And he's going to make this team better. The Raiders don't need him to be max. See, that's a problem when you have a great player. Everyone says, we got to go get a bunch. No, you don't. You can't have 53 of the same guy. And you don't need your quarterback to be at a shot of Viagra emotionally. You want him walking in the fourth quarter at Arrowhead, and you're down 6. And there's 54 seconds on the clock, and you got the ball at the 20, and the crowd is just going ape crap crazy. National TV game, and him to walk in and, all right, boys. I don't remember who told this story, so forgive me for not remembering. I should, and that's my fault. But Joe Montana playing in the Super Bowl at the Detroit Silverdome no longer even exists. Game's on the line. He walks in, gets on his knee, and says to his teammates, hey, look, isn't that John Candy in the stands? I mean, the whole place, Super Bowl, all the environment. And they talked about he just took the air out of the football. Calmed everybody down. They won the football game. You don't need that from your quarterback to go in and be max. But yet you don't need your Max Crosby to go in when it's 4th and goal, 1 second left, and you're up by 5, and the other team has to score a touchdown and go and say, all right, boys. Is that Dana White over there? You want him. Let's go. It's different. Same mindset, different skill set. Geno brings that. I fully expect Geno Smith to have a great year. Do I think he's going to be a top 5 quarterback when the year's over? Nope. And I don't think the Raiders need him to be. They need Geno to be Geno. But do you remember when I've talked with you about young players before and you say, well, if they do this and if they do that, they could be this? And I talked about you're betting on the come. You're betting on the future. It's called blue sky in business. There's no betting on blue sky with Geno. You know what you're getting. No risk. Great pickup. He's going to absolutely be pushed every play, every down, every day, every week, every month, every practice, every second for his job. And I do not even remotely think there's a shot he loses it before the start of the season. Great addition by the Raiders. And when you look at and even though I think Stafford's a better quarterback, and I do think Stafford's a Hall of Famer, I don't think Geno's there. You look at what they would have had to pay Stafford to get him in Vegas, then I think you have a whole nother argument. Whole nother one. So let me come to Aidan O'Connell, who at this point is clearly the number 2 quarterback. Okay. We talked about would you, should you, could you, betting on the come, blue sky. You don't have to do that with Geno. You do with Aidan. He has not shown us enough to say, no way is that guy an NFL quarterback. But he has not shown us enough to say he is. And in fact, he's shown enough to be skeptical. Now, Las Vegas Sports Today, it's a website run by Mike Dixon and Sean Zeidel. I used to call him Zettel. He corrected me. I apologize, Sean. Did an interview with Aidan. I think it was at an Aces game this year, and he talked about working with Tom Brady this offseason. And Aidan brings his teammates love him. Ethereal kid, strong leader. Okay, all that's great. But you have to have a quarterback that's going to win you games you should have lost to have one of those top 15 quarterbacks in the NFL. Now, I'm going to say something that people aren't going to like, but it's reality. I think, without a doubt, Patrick Mahomes, best quarterback in the NFL. And when you look at the offense around him last year, I think it was his best year. Nowhere near the weapons he'd had in the past. He willed that team to the Super Bowl. He willed them there. It was a phenomenal job. And what about getting his butt kicked in the Super Bowl? He should have got his butt kicked. He didn't even belong there. Philadelphia was such a better team. But Patrick Mahomes had just worked magic to get them there. See, Tom Brady, we all know about what he did with Randy Moss and Edelman, and he had some good receivers over the years. I'm not saying he didn't, but he had a lot of receivers that weren't good and still found ways to win. Guys would be injured. How many games did you think, okay, Patriots can't win this one? Look at all their injuries, and they would win? Brady. He knew how to throw guys open. He had matured. And he knew how to get guys the ball in stride. He knew I can hold this ball for an extra second so my guy doesn't get creamed and then throw him open. I may get hit. It's okay. He's not going to. All maturity things. Okay. Aidan played enough that there isn't one game you can look at and say the Raiders should not have won that game, but for Aidan. Played his best football under Bo Hardegree, who now is leading the number 1 quarterback, Cam Ward, with Tennessee. I think he was badly hurt by Josh McDaniels, who just burned in his head. No interceptions, no risk, no risk, no risk, no risk, to the point where he was so afraid of making a mistake, he struggled to play the sport. Bo Hardegree helped him with that. His rookie year gave you a lot of reasons for optimism. Last year under Luke Getsy, in my opinion, was terrible. But then he got under Scott Turner, improved a little, but it wasn't like he went out and won a game. I remember, I think it was the Dallas game. He was beating Gardner Minshew for the starter's job, and then just makes an inexplicit interception. Made no sense. Now, if you think I'm picking on Aidan, I'm not. I love the guy. Have a great relationship with him. I just think the world of Aidan. I think I said, I think the world of Aidan O'Connell. I just do. Wonderful kid, great husband, hard worker, all of that's true. But we're not hiring Sunday school teachers. You're looking for starting quarterbacks in the NFL. And I've said this to you many times. If you're not convinced he's the guy, you keep drafting, you keep signing free agents till either he convinces you the guy or you get somebody who has convinced you. He's number 2 right now. I would expect him to stick with Hole and to keep the number 2 role. I would expect him to mature and to continue to get better. I've not given up on Aidan O'Connell. There was a draft market, trade market. The Raiders could have traded him. They chose not to. Doesn't mean that a big camp from one of these other quarterbacks we're going to talk about, maybe they do. But at the time of taping of this podcast, they believed in him. There's something there. Now we come out to the guy that's going to push him. That's Cam Miller, quarterback out of NDSU, North Dakota State University. There's a lot of things about this young man to really like. If you can watch his film, watch him in the pocket from where the ankle meets the foot up. His form. Just watch his form. That young man, he's got it. Now, he fell to where he fell for a lot of reasons. It wasn't like he was a surefire guy. He would have been higher. But this guy has promise, and they like him. Now, having said that, the Raiders kept 2 quarterbacks last year. Jacoby Myers would have been the 3rd had they needed a quarterback. I think Tommy Malotte's going to make this. He's not a every down quarterback, but him and Jacoby could probably work it out. So with Cam Miller, do the Raiders keep a 3rd quarterback? Because remember, the COVID rules of protecting 4 players are no longer there. So you're not hiding Cam Miller on a practice squad. Somebody's going to sign him. Somebody's going to sign him. So if you see enough of them, then do you trade Aidan? Or do you try to keep him on the 53 man? Interesting thought process here. But you go watch Cam Miller. Now we're going to be doing a podcast coming up here shortly that's all him, and we're bringing in a special guest to talk about him. But you watch that young man play and watch what he does and how he does it. You can just see there's potential. Now, Aidan has experience, and that's valuable. His first year tape under Bo Hardegree, it gives a lot of optimism to the new Raiders. Last year's probably not so much. So they're wondering, what do we got here? But I don't care where Cam Miller was picked. I don't care. Doesn't matter to me. He was the 215th pick overall. 6th round. I don't care. He's got it. Tremendous work ethic. He's going to be right there with Geno. And Aidan, for that matter. They're both, all of them. But he has the frame, and he's got things he has to work on, but he's teachable. And if you were looking at him, it would be like buying a house you're going to renovate, even though he's not an old quarterback. And you'd say, oh, that house has good bones. He's got good bones. He's got good frame. He's got a good stance. He's got a lot you can work with. When you watch the way he uses his body to throw football, that is one thing young kids sometimes don't learn in Pee Wee football. They think throwing the football is all about your arm. Your arm is the least of it. It's where to put your feet, how to put your foot in, use strength, that kinetic strength off your leg, up through your torso, into your upper body, and then the sling. He's got all that. He's special. For a 6-round quarterback, he's special. But you can just see it on him. You can just see it. Now he's got to develop it, and he's going to start behind Aidan in OTAs for sure. Then we'll see where this goes. Then lastly, we're going to talk about Carter Bradley. I just think Carter Bradley is just a great kid. And he's your practice squad guy. And he has shown enough little things. Remember, your practice squad guys are not developed. He's not Aidan. That's why last year when Aidan got injured, they go and get another quarterback. They knew Carter wasn't the guy. There was enough there developmentally that you're going to give him a shot. And that's there. Now, he also is Gus Bradley's kid. So you know Pete's known him for his life, for most of his life. There's some of that it there. And Pete Carroll is notoriously patient with guys that are showing it, showing some flash, and growing. Practice squad guy, but he's just a little bit interesting to me. Again, can they keep Cam on the practice? I don't think they can. Does that mean if he's close, they trade Aidan, or does it mean they keep 3 quarterbacks? Very well could mean that. Probably does mean that. Not saying that definitively. I'm just, if you're playing the odds. This Raider quarterback room's got some really good experience. Remember, throwing men open. The maturity that Geno's bringing. It's going to make all those other 3 young quarterbacks better. So they got a seasoned quarterback. They got a backup with some experience who's young. They got another guy with young and has some pizzazz. And they got a practice squad guy. Just, we would say where I'm from up north, has a little something, something. Carter. Just enough little bit to go, maybe. So you're saying there's a chance. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining me today for this quarterback breakdown. See you tomorrow with another position group ranking. Bye-bye now.